Hey everybody, it's the Black Powder Beginner, and today is a momentous day because I will be focusing my efforts on this. The Poultry and Trimble's Smith Carbine. And this is a little bit different from what I normally show on the channel because this is a break top breech loader. Very first on the channel, and actually another very first is that normally I feature Thompson Center's CVA's muzzle loaders. Well, those muzzle loaders have not necessarily been a part of history. They're kind of based on a time frame, but this is an actual historical firearm that was used in the Civil War, and I believe it was, well, we'll get into all of that. Just stay tuned. So let's take a closer look at the Poultry and Trimble Smith's Carbine. Now, as I said in the intro, this is an actual, replica or reproduction of an actual rifle used in the American Civil War. Now, I'm not going to get really deep into the history. If you want to get into the history of this rifle, there are several videos on YouTube that dive deep into the history of it, when it was patented, who patented it, when it was used. What I will say is that it is the fourth, I believe, most issued rifle during the Civil War, behind the Spencer, the Sharps, the Burnside. So if you want to know a little bit more about the history of it, you can check out YouTube. There are quite a few channels that dive deep into it. We're just going to talk about this one right here. So this one here is a reproduction, a Pieta reproduction. It's quite old. If you can see the markings here, the proof marks. So it looks to be about from the 90s, at least. But it's in fairly good shape. There's a little bit of damage at the buttstock, but the action still works. It's quite a nice little rifle for its age. Like I said, it is a top break design, which means that it does open from the top. This is the hinge down here, and when you want to open it, you just press up this little lever. It opens this spring, and then you can open the action. And if you take a look in there, you can see that the cartridges, which we're going to see in a little bit, fit down in here and there. And we close it right back up. It does have a ladder sight. This one here, for distance, this one here, you can see that it's pretty loose, which I need to adjust. And it has a brass blade front sight. So it is the cavalry carbine, I believe. The artillery, those had a butt stock sling mount and or four stock sling mount. This one has the cavalry ring bar. It does fire musket caps, of course, and it is quite a nice little rifle with a 21 and a half inch barrel, partially octagonal. But what's really something other than it having a top break design are the cartridges. Let's take a look at those. So these are plastic, black plastic, and they're actually fashioned after the indica rubber that was actually used during the Civil War. They're not. They're pretty. They're pretty stiff, pretty solid. But there's also two other kinds. There is the aluminum, and there is the brass. Now, I did a little bit of testing, not so far as shooting. I've never shot this rifle before, but just testing the fitment because there are um, a number of channels and a number of places on YouTube where you can kind of figure out, and through a lot of research, a lot of talking to my mentor, Mr. Keith, I figured out that, well, for one thing, this Pieta reproduction has a smaller bore diameter than the actual originals. Now these brass, I believe these brass are Pieta reproductions. The aluminum ones are Pietas as well, and then I don't know where who reproduced these, the black plastic ones, but I got all three from Dixie Gunworks. A great place for a really cheap price. So, with that being said, the bore being a 514 um, inch diameter on the bore, the bullets or projectiles, excuse me, the projectiles that I decided to use are the 515 5070 government projectiles, and also the 50 caliber Lee real bullet. Now the 515 is a 450 grain bullet, which is a heavy bullet. It's a long bullet, as you can see, projectile, excuse me. And the real bullet is projectile is quite a bit shorter. So what I discovered is that the original projectile for these rifles is a 518 diameter, 354 grain projectile. Now you can get the mold from Era's Gone for about $80. You can also get the cast bullets from Era's Gone, but buy them from a place called Jefferson Arsenal. Now, once again, I didn't want to go through. Well, I actually was impatient. I didn't want to wait for the mold or the bullets from Jefferson Arsenal projectiles to make it here. So I decided that I would use what I have at hand. So this right here is a layman's beginner guide to how you can kind of freestyle, so to speak, and load these cartridges with these projectiles that I have at hand. So at this point, I have these three cases. Now, since the bore itself that I slugged and measured at 514 should, the 515 should fit. And I have seen some videos where people have shot 515 projectiles. Now, just for the sake of argument, you can see that pushing in, of course, it's the plastic and it goes right down in. Tight, but fits in, snug, won't go anywhere. Let me pull that out. And I did this because I just wanted to show you there's a difference. Now, the plastic cases, like I said, you just saw the bullet goes in quite easy. But the aluminum and the brass, not so much. Now, this is the one that I tested, and I had to mangle it to get it out of the bullet, and as you can see, out of the casing, as you can see, the base barely gets in. Right now, I was of course doing some prompt engineering with Google AI, Google Gemini, of course, one of my many tools, and it said something about annealing, which I figured out, which I hadn't heard before, is that where you heat the cases to make the metal more flexible, softer, not as brittle. You do that with your used cartridge cases. And so I said, well, why don't I try it with these? Now this, and you can see, and actually I have 4 that you're going to see, and 4 that you're going to see loaded, but not all of them, and 4 brass and 4 of the plastic. So as you can see, I took just a regular torch, some regular heat, and heated the mouth of this case. Now you saw what it just did, right? Let's look at one that was heated. It goes in. It's a little bit more flexible. It goes in. And I can work it in. And this one, I actually heated for a longer period of time because I was afraid that I was going to melt this aluminum or warp it or something like that. But this is the one I heated for the longest. You can kind of see where it's been, but see how easy that goes in? Already up to the second band. Now, once again, this is the one that was not heated, and I can barely get the base in. One that was heated for a little bit of time slides right into the second band. So if you do buy the aluminum cases from Dixie Gun Works and you want to use something like this, and this one, once again, is a 515 diameter bullet. 515, 450 grain bullet. Just imagine if you put a 518 into one of these. It's not going to go. I don't necessarily believe now the bullets are built different. This is a longer bullet, but I have a hard time believing, and I'm going to find out. I'm going to actually get some from Jefferson Arsenal, and I want to test it out. But for all intents and purposes right now, for this introduction, that's what I had to do. Now, the brass is a different story altogether. The brass it won't go into the brass at all. And even after You can see where I heated this brass case quite a bit, if you can see that. And no, nothing will not go because of this base. But what will go is the 50 caliber Lee. And that's only because it's stepped. If anybody knows anything about the Lee real bullets, you do know that the driving bands are stepped. So with that being said, I decided to try with the Lee in the brass and the Lee reel, because this is also a Lee bullet as well. But I wanted to try the Lee reel bullet with the brass and the 515 with the other two, with the aluminum and the black powder. I mean, with the um, black plastic. So let's load a case. Let's do that. So if you look inside, and I don't know if you can see that very well, but there is a small flash hole. I call it a flash hole that allows the musket flame to get into the powder. Now, what I have found out by doing a lot more research is that flash hole does leak the loose powder. So I took a small hole punch, this size here, and punched out some holes. Well, punched out some, and I have some of my mulberry paper, and I have some of my regular coffee filter paper, both nitrated. So let's try to put one with the mulberry paper, and I just drop it down at the bottom, and it covers up the hole. Because these, and I'll tell you why I use such a small diameter. Because these are actually, which is slightly larger, well, about 2 times larger. These fit the case, the mount of the case. Right? But when you push that down, what it does is it's too big. It just tends to kind of fold, and when you get it even, it'll create like a cup. So with that being said, I just wanted the little dot here to cover the hole. So with that being said, now, like I said, I got these from Dixie Gunworks, and what they did was, in the description, they tell you that for these, 39 grains of powder is the max that these can hold. The question is, with my projectiles being slightly longer, is that good enough to give me enough room to get, well, 40 grains? 39 to me is an odd number, so let's just do 40 grains. So with the 40 grains set on my powder measure, I'm going to measure out 40 grains of Schutzen 3F powder. And actually, it's going to end up being more like 39. And excuse me. Let's try to move that, center that dot a little bit. Let's just pour it down in there. So that's where it ends up, which might end up being just a little bit too much. But with that being said, we're going to give it a shot. So another thing that Mr. Keith brought to my attention was that the bullets need to be lubed. Of course, I lube all of my bullets and my paper cartridges, but what I use is a felt wad to separate the the projectile from the powder. With this, I'm debating because, like I said, if the length of the projectile is so long that it might be it might not be enough room to actually put a felt wad in there. But let's see. Let's give it a shot. Uh, Felt wad, and let's. Okay. And I have right here one of my lubed bullets. And yeah, and this is just hand hand pressed in. I'm not going to be using anything to press these down. But trying to put as much pressure. Okay. So, and this looks nothing like the pictures of what I've seen, but it would end up being right to the top of the last band lube groove, or the bottom of the top lube groove. So so let's see. That's one with the felt wad. Let's try one without a felt wad, and just maybe we can use just one of these. Drop that down in there. And I believe this on the inside is tapered. It's tapered a little bit because it falls right like it should. Let's load up some more shoots in the powder measure. And like I said, it's slightly less, so it ends up being about 39 grains. You know what? Let that settle. Put that down in there. And something that I learned, just a little side note, something that I learned, black powder always needs to be settled. It needs to be tapped so it'll settle down a little bit and you get a little bit more space. But let's try with this. I'm just gonna lay it over the top, grab another projectile and ooh, you know what? Trying to make sure that it's centered. And oops, a little bit more lube off than I wanted to, but okay. So yeah, felt wad, no felt wad. Now let's see what it does in the action. Mhm. Well, so here's the thing. I have tried this without the powder, and the projectile will get stuck in the bore. So just loading it in, it does go in. And that's about as far as I'm going to test here. We'll see more later. And well, in actuality, what I need to test is this one because it's sticking out quite far. And trying to do this, and that, oh, well, okay. All right. So that's about what I wanted to see. Now, that's two for black. Now let's try, and I'm gonna have to heat this one, so we'll just sit that one to the side. And this one is the one that's the most acceptable to the bullet. So same process. Take a little dot here, just dropping in. Now I might have squished it a little bit. That's not gonna work. Uh, so there. Okay. Now, in the description for these, actually for the brass, there was no description for the aluminum cases. But for the brass, it says 35 grains is the maximum amount of powder that you should put in these cartridges. And I can understand why, because if you look down in there, you can see that there's a small step. And I believe that's where the bullet is supposed to stop. And if you look at the aluminum, you'll see that small step as well. So let's just see if, well, you know what? Let's see if 40 grains will do it. Well, yeah. Let me be adventurous. Or 39. Excuse me. Or 39. Yeah, that's more like 39. Make sure that dot is right there. And no. Okay. So maybe I can slightly see the lip still. Maybe 38, 37. But for all intents and purposes, 39. Now, with that being said, the felt wad, I believe, is going to be out of the question with these. So I'm just going to take my 515, and even with the amount of lube, oh no, slid right in. And so that the projectile stops right at that lip. So what I'm thinking, now that I see this, what I'm thinking, yeah, that's where the lip is. What I'm thinking is that this one may be too deep into the and so this one with the felt wad is probably where it needs to sit because it's a longer bullet. So with that being said, we're gonna see how these work at the range. But I doubt that this one will work properly. Properly. Now for the brass, which has given me fits. But let's see what that Lee reel bullet will do. And for this one, I'm going to use the nitrated coffee filter paper. We're just going to drop that down in, covers it up. Once again, I'm just going to leave it at the setting that it's at. Oh, tap it. Ends up being somewhere in the area of 30, 39 grains. Drop that down in there. And that looks more like it can accept a little bit more powder than 39 or 40 grains. But we're going to leave it mostly uniform. And we're going to use a Lee bullet, a Lee reel bullet. And we're just going to, boom, press it down in there. Goes in there snug. And yeah. And maybe I shouldn't do this, but I just feel like give it a little tap just to make sure. But that's basically just about where it needs to sit, looks like. So we're gonna do a little quick fit test. It meets the bore. And we didn't actually do one, but I believe the aluminum is just like the black plastic. Fits the bore. Yeah. So, with that being said, it looks like we may be in business. So, with that being said, I'm going to load up all of the cartridges that I have, minus this one. This one needs to be heated. And I'll see you at the range. All right. So here we are at the range with the Smith Carbine. We're going to take a couple shots and see how she does. Mm. Now that was top of the sight at the bottom of the paper. And it's not. It didn't hit paper, did it?
Yeah, it did.
Where?
Hit the right edge. Right at about 2 o'clock.
Okay.
You can see, you can actually see the fold of the paper where it hit.
So it's not, because it's hard for me to, well.
It's still hot. You're aiming at the bottom of the paper.
Yeah.
You're about 10 inches high. Also, about 8 inches. 8 inches.
Okay, yeah, I see it.
Just barely nicked it.
You see, I mean, the sight is pretty high in itself.
They make them that way so that you can adjust it.
So I'd have to take a file and take it down. Okay. So the only other thing is with the ladder, it'll stick up.
Loose.
Yeah. It's been like that since I got it. I didn't want to do anything to it, but I was figuring maybe I could squeeze it a little bit with some vice grips, but I didn't want to like mar it up or anything, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so I leave that down and just try to aim through here for 50 yards, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not getting the shot I'm looking for.
Oh, they run those front sights tall.
Yeah.
So that you can adjust them down.
Yeah. But with it being high, I wouldn't adjust it down, right? For the front sight.
No, you want to go up.
I'm seeing there's a little screw right there. I didn't want to mess with it, but it looks like you can unscrew this and take this out and put a taller one in.
Yeah.
Okay. So then so then I'm right on that. All right. Let's try aluminum.
Try one of those.
Yeah, we're gonna see. Okay.
Hey, you're on paper.
You know where I aimed at? I aimed at in the dirt. The bottom of the blade, the top of the blade was barely just touching the top of the grass right there. Right where it slopes up.
Shit.
That's what I'm saying. This is shooting crazy right now.
Yeah.
But after 5 shots, finally hit the black. All right.
Good afternoon. There it is. Right over there. Okay. Got this. Go ahead and put your shotgun in the rack. Right here behind you, sir. Put your shotgun in the rack.
So what's your, I'm sorry.
Put your shotgun in the rack. Oops.
Yeah.
Hey, am I okay to go put this up?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay.
When the lights are on, red lights on, range is hot. Don't go down range.
Oh, okay. Appreciate it.
You nicked it right at 2 o'clock, right at the edge.
Same spot. Okay.
Now it's time to clean it.
What I'm figuring out is these, the brass are, the flash doesn't get into the brass as good as the aluminum of the black ones, the black plastic. Because on the first shot with the brass, it took 3 caps, and that was on the first. That was on my 3rd shot. So,
Okay. So what you need to do is on a brass, find a drill that's one size larger
then the
than
whole.
that flash hole.
Okay, and take it on through and just kind of open it up just a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was thinking too. Because the aluminum ones seem to work. As a matter of fact, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because if it's not working, that's probably what it is.
Okay. Because what I did was I put a piece of my nitrated coffee filter paper down at the bottom so that the powder doesn't leak out. You know, so since it's nitrated, I figure the flash will go straight through it, it'll burn, and then it hit the powder and then like that. So everyone is doing like it's supposed to, except for those brass. So,
And that's because it's not getting sufficient.
yeah. Okay. So,
That's little things. I know.
yeah, take a second to clean. All right. Black. Okay.
Low and right.
Low and right. Oh, yeah, I see it.
I'm ahead.
I think with some of the ones that I'm shooting, I put in the black, I put a felt wad down to kind of separate the bullet from the powder. But these have that. If you look at it, it has that like that step up. So that's just I guess that's where the bullet is going to stop. And so I didn't put any felt wad because it would be so much longer sticking out of the case. And I'm thinking that maybe that felt wad helps a little bit.
It doesn't hurt.
You think it, but you think it helps the shot some?
Some, yeah.
That's what I'm figuring.
It also keeps the bullet from melting.
Oh, right, from the powder and the force of the
powder.
okay.
Heat of the powder.
It kind of protects that base just a little bit.
Just a little bit, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. I got one more brass after this one.
Smith Carbine.
Trash. All right. So the day is done, and I'm at the counter cleaning the Smith Carbine. So what I've done is I've taken some pipe cleaners and gone, well, let me, I've gone down into the musket cap hole, a musket nipple hole, pulled the clean out screw, and I have cleaned the breech as about as good as I can get it. I've taken several, let's see if I can get a shot of this. I've taken several, and that looks like it needs to have a couple more patches go through, but that's what I'm doing. And what I'm doing is I'm taking my 50 caliber New Englander ramrod and with some patches, run it down. It didn't really need the brush so much. It's actually a clean shooter, and I also have the cartridge cases soaking in some hot soapy water. And what I'll do is I'll take a brush and clean those very well so that I can reload them. But I'm cleaning outside. I'm gonna run some more patches down the barrel, oil her up, and that'll be it. But in a comparison to cleaning and shooting, as you've just seen, it's a lot easier than a muzzleloader. A muzzleloader, you have to work for every single thing that you do, and this makes it a lot easier. Definitely makes it a lot easier. So there you have it, the Smith Carbine. And I just wanted to give a few closing thoughts. As far as my shots, which, just so you can get a better look, you can see that out of 18 shots, 18, I hit the paper 3, 6, 7, 8. 8 times out of 18, which is highly inconsistent. But what is consistent is every shot is right of the paper. Almost every shot except for this one is right of the target. So I was talking about it with with Oki over there at the range, and you've heard his voice on there, and so the sight is set off to the right. The rear sight is set off to the right. So with that being said, so basically it shoots. The windage is correct. So what I did when I got home after I did my cleaning is I tapped the sight. There's a small mark on the barrel, and I believe that's a reference mark for how the straightness to adjust the windage. So I lined up the sight with that mark on the barrel. And next week, we'll see if that actually helps with the windage. Now, as far as the height, my first 5 shots were all high. So that is one thing that I'm going to have to adjust for, because I'm not going to change out the front sight just yet. I'm going to leave it the way it is and kind of try to work within the system that I have. But another thing that I noticed as I was looking back at the video is that these black cartridges fire better when there is with the 515 bullet. These fire better with a felt wad. And I believe it's because I push the bullet too far down when I'm loading them without the felt wad. Now the other two, the aluminum and the brass I'm going to have to work on the flash hole, because you can't see this, but in actuality, the flash hole on the brass compared to the aluminum is quite small. And I mean quite small. Matter of fact, I'm gonna put a picture up. I'm gonna show you. But it's quite small. So I'm gonna adjust that as well. I'm gonna fix that. But besides all of that, I believe that there's a variation in the powder. If I'm going to shoot cartridges of any kind, what I'm gathering from the information that I've gotten and what I have been seeing is that the powder level, the amount of powder, has to be consistent. And I know that quite a few of you are going to say, well, duh. But for a beginner such as myself, it doesn't really compute until after you do things. So once I got everything done, I looked back at the video, and kind of was comparing the notes that I had gotten from quite a few different sources, Mr. Keith, Oki, YouTube, and certain things. It came to my realization that the powder charges must be consistent for the shots to be consistent. And it's not as important in paper cartridges, which is what I've been shooting, on top of the fact that they're muzzle loaders that I've been shooting. So those muzzle loaders, when you're ramming that paper cartridge down, you're basically tearing up the paper cartridge anyway. So it's not a solid cartridge. It doesn't stay solid the entire time. These do, because there's no force. I'm not forcing them in to the combustion chamber and then packing them down and then firing it. So I think I'm gonna sit down and actually pay more attention to the powder loads. And next week, I'm going to, maybe I'll shoot another video. A lot of times when I shoot videos, I get a little bit distracted because I'm actually looking at the camera. People are talking to me. Shots are being fired. And so it's a lot. But I think I'm going to pay more attention to the powder charges, put felt wads into the black cases, and open up the flash hole on the brass cases. And I think that will help with my accuracy. So stay tuned for that. Until then, at the end of the day, I'm having a great time, and I hope you are too. I am the Black Powder Beginner, and I'll see you next week.